Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Seth Galina here for another quarterback showcase episode here following week 8 in the NFL. We got 3 quarterbacks that we really want to talk about this week for differing reasons. Anthony Richardson's one of them. Feels like one of the most polarizing quarterbacks in the NFL at this point. Had the big time throws, also had what felt like maybe some easy misses in the loss to the Houston Texans. Want to talk about Justin Herbert, who over the last 2 weeks, not sure anybody's playing the quarterback position better than Herbert, and he's just not getting the love that he deserves. And then we got to talk about Jalen Hurts. We've been critics of Jalen Hurts here on this show before, but he's strung together a couple of really good weeks, so we do have to talk about him a little bit. Seth, you're giving me the shocked face. What's the shocked face for here?
Oh, no, we're going to talk about Jalen Hurts. Like, I guarantee you. People aren't going to like what I have to say, but we're going to talk about it.
Okay, all right. That's a teaser. We're going to save it for the end there. If you want to see all of the great PFF stats and data points that we have to offer, go over to PFF.com. Get yourself a PFF Plus subscription. We're going to be firing a lot of them at you here on this show, so you can do your own research with the tools and the data that we have by getting yourself a PFF Plus subscription. So check that out over at PFF.com. All right, can we open by talking about Anthony Richardson? I feel like we have to, because this is what everybody on social media is going crazy for. It is it feels like 8th week in a row here for Richardson. Not quite, because he's missed a little bit of time, but where the stat sheet just ain't pretty. It just does not read pretty here for Anthony Richardson. It goes 10 for 32 with 175 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He had 4 big-time throws in this game, though. Had a couple of drops. We'll get into that in a second. He was only 2 for 15 passing in the first half of this game. They have a chance at the end, but Houston Texans, they end up winning this game at home. And so, I don't know, Seth, just overall, you've watched Anthony Richardson. What are your thoughts? I'll let you start. You can start with the good. You can start with the bad. You can start with what's working, what isn't. Talk to me about Anthony Richardson. What's your thoughts on this player?
Well, the bad is pretty obvious. Like, the accuracy and decision-making is mostly not good. I think the accuracy is probably worse than the decision-making right now. I think when you watch the tape, it's like, this kind of happens a lot, where it's like never as bad as you want to. You go into it thinking, wow, this might be the worst. Like, I might be better than Anthony Richardson. And then you watch it and you're like, okay, no, this is a real NFL quarterback. So yeah, I don't think it's as bad. The tape isn't as bad, but the accuracy is just like really bad. And it's especially bad on like throws where he's got to throw the receiver on the run, especially across the field. Something we talked about with Lamar Jackson recently, and how good he is at throwing guys in stride as they're moving, horizontally. He misses guys. He puts it behind. He puts it too far in front. So even like slants, slants aren't a high value route. It's a 6-yard route, let's say, 3 steps, then you hit the slant route. Like, but if you put it on the money and guy can catch it in stride, all of a sudden that, catch at 6 yards becomes a 12-yard completion, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't get that from Anthony Richardson. But I think there's still some stuff to like. His ability in the pocket is top notch. He gets out of trouble a lot. Now, what he does when he gets out of trouble, that's a problem. But I think there's enough to work with there. And it's something that everyone's talked about, is this like pressure to sack thing that we like to look at, the stat that we really like to look at when we're talking about quarterbacks, especially we're talking about projecting quarterbacks forward. And we're still in the projecting Anthony Richardson forward stage.
Right.
He doesn't take sacks. He gets out of trouble. So there's that base to work with, is something at least. And you're just hoping for, I'm not saying it's good. Like I said, the film is better than the stats indicate, but it's still not elite level, obviously. Mm-hmm. So there's still a lot to work with, to work towards. But I don't know what you think. I'd still start him at this point.
I'd 100% start him. And look, I understand that like things aren't maybe as good as you would want them to be, or as consistent as you would want them to be, especially when you have a veteran who's won in this league like Joe Flacco sitting behind him. It's very tempting. I mean, Dalton Washington, when we were doing the grades release show, Dalton was like, if you start Joe Flacco, you might make the playoffs with this team. And I said, okay, but that's still, to me, that's stepping over $100 bills to pick up pennies. Like, that's how I would, because if you make the playoffs with Joe Flacco, I guess you could talk about, all right, well, it sets up a winning culture, and you get to maybe host a playoff game or just making it as a wild card, and then you get that playoff experience. Maybe that sort of like unquantifiable stuff is worth it for you. But in my opinion, you're not winning a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco at this point in his career. You could maybe win a Super Bowl with Anthony Richardson someday. You don't really know. And to me, the part of this that I don't like the most, and again, I'm not Shane Steichen. I'm not around the building all the time. I think that the people who are in the building maybe have a better understanding of exactly the unquantifiable X factor stuff that might go into making a decision about like benching this guy or going to Joe Flacco or whatever. But when you look at Anthony Richardson, he was a one-year starter at Florida. Like, he was viewed as a sort of a project long-term quarterback in the NFL coming out of Florida. He didn't have like all this experience. He wasn't Bo Nix. He didn't have 5 years as a starter, all this starting experience. And you get to the NFL, looks all right through the first 4 games. There were some flashes. There was some good stuff. And then he missed the rest of the year. He had concussions. Then he missed the rest of the season. So he barely played last year. And now, he also misses time this year. So if you want to talk about injuries, I think that's another thing. But to sit here, what is he, 10, 11 games into his NFL career off of the scouting report that you read of him coming out of Florida and go, yeah, I mean, see, he's just not where he needs to be. That timeline doesn't make sense. I think that teams do a really bad job overall in the NFL of getting really impatient. And I understand there's millions of dollars on the line. You want to have people in the stands. You want things to be going well. But when you draft Anthony Richardson, you're not drafting him to be good in year 1 and year 2, even fully healthy year 1 and year 2. You're drafting Anthony Richardson to be superstar level year 3, maybe 4, and then 4 for the rest of his career. That's the timeline with Anthony Richardson. The timeline was always his entire rookie contract. And I think that the way that we're looking at him right now is an example of how we look at what CJ Stroud did last year and we go, see, why can't everybody be CJ Stroud? CJ Stroud's the exception. He's not the bar that we should hold all of these quarterbacks to, especially given Anthony Richardson's background. So when you watch this game, yeah, he is not completing easier passes the way that you need to. He's got to find out how to complete these 1 to 9 yard throws specifically. But Seth, I'm watching the game yesterday. I'm watching the All-22. He's got some sick throws, some absolute beauties. Yeah, okay, it doesn't look perfect all the time, but how are we 11 games into this guy's career, whatever it is, and we're ready to just pull the plug on it? Now, I'll tell you, the actual tangible part of this where I would say, okay, I understand why you're at least entertaining this, is him saying, yeah, I was tired on 3rd down, so I took myself out of the game. That's entirely different, though. That is, does the rest of the locker room respect you at that point? Because it's the same sort of argument that we had with Deshaun Watson, where we were mad at Kevin Stefanski because he really wasn't allowed to bench Deshaun Watson. I'm convinced. I don't know that for sure, but I'm convinced that's the case. But at the same time, you're having to stare the other 53 guys on the active game day roster in the face and go, yeah, I'm actively making the worst decision at quarterback because we have to. If people in the Indianapolis Colts locker room start looking at Anthony Richardson like, you're taking yourself out of the game when we need you most, that's when maybe I start to understand, okay, that might start a mutiny in the locker room. But in terms of Anthony Richardson's play, I get it. It's not where you want it to be. It can look ugly at times. It can also look incredible at times. And the expected timeline of where we're at with him in his career as a 1-year starter at Florida, barely playing last year, and then even being hurt this year. I mean, that's not nearly enough to go to somebody else and to bench him, in my opinion. That's my thoughts on him.
I'm pretty much on the same page as you. I'm Joe Flacco. Let's start there. Joe Flacco is not a good quarterback. Let's not act like the guy who's on the bench is some elite player. Joe Flacco is a mid quarterback who got lucky that Amari Cooper carried him for about 5 weeks last year. We don't have to beat around the bush about how good Joe Flacco is. So, yes, Joe Flacco might get you to the playoffs. That's not a guarantee either, by the way.
Right.
Right. But and then I agree. Are they going to win the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco? No, they're not. Sorry. No, they're not. That's what the Browns said last year. And guess what happened? He threw like 9 picks against the Texans in the playoff game. Like that's like that is not going to happen. Now, do we look at it differently? Like you're saying, do we look at it differently because we have no skin in the game? Yeah, we do. Because if I'm Shane Steichen, if I'm Chris Ballard, who seems like he can never get fired, if I'm those guys, it's like, man, I don't want to finish. I don't want to put a quarterback in who we can't move the ball with, and then we start losing games because the defense is not great either. Certainly, their pass defense isn't very good. So if, we can't move the ball, and we're going to start losing games. No one's going to care. Jim Irsay is not going to care. He's going to fire me, and it's going to be a waste of my. Like I got to save my own ass here. And just barely making the playoffs with Joe Flacco might be enough to save your ass if you're Shane Steichen. Mm-hmm. And especially because Shane Steichen has shown that he can do stuff with mid-tier quarterbacks, right? You can see he can create a better offense than kind of the play of the kind of isolated play of the quarterback. He's done that before. So that's where I could see them going to Flacco. But at the same time, like, yeah, I'm in agreement. Like you got to get Richardson on the field and just let him play and see what happens. Because I get it's a very different discussion when you have a guy like the first guy that popped into my head was Josh Rosen, because you have a guy like Josh Rosen who played a lot of years starting at UCLA and then came in without traits, without elite physical traits and couldn't play right away. And that was it, right? We have the complete opposite here with Anthony Richardson. You have a guy with traits, and like I said, those traits have carried over. His ability to escape pressure has carried over, and he hasn't played a lot, like you said. Like it's like 18 starts since he was a high school senior or whatever. So like I think there's a lot more to get out of Anthony Richardson. So I don't know if benching him is the right thing. I certainly don't know if benching him for the rest of the season is the right thing. I could see a situation where maybe you have a plan where you bring him back at some point if you bench him now. But I don't think benching him for the rest of the season is really good long term. Yeah. Because again, Joe Flacco is not getting you where you really want to go. And Joe Flacco is going to start losing games too, by the way. Like
right.
I'm sorry to like hate on Joe Flacco. I've liked watching him over the years. And I did like watching him throw jump balls to Amari Cooper last year. But like they're good. There's losses coming when Joe Flacco plays quarterback for you. Like he's not going to win the next 10 games.
Yeah, like I mean, they barely beat the Raiders, right? When they were playing the Raiders, and it was basically, I think it came down to Joe Flacco like made a big time throw in the game, and Gardner Minshew like was not able to do so, if I remember correctly. Was it the Raiders or who they? No, it was the Titans. It was the Titans. I'm thinking of the Titans. Yeah. So it was that Titans game where it was like, okay, well, Will Levis wasn't able to make the one big time throw at the end, and Joe Flacco sort of was, and it wasn't even like this huge big time throw, but that's what got you a 3-point win against the Titans. And so I want to hit on what you said. I don't think that Shane Steichen's in danger of losing his job. I think that certainly when you look at the situation and it's like, okay, well, what Richardson has sort of turned out to be, like he's making the most of the situation. So I don't think he's in danger of losing his job. I think he's a really good head coach. So I don't think he necessarily has that kind of a pressure. I do think there is sort of a locker room pressure depending on how the locker room took Richardson tapping himself out of that game. So if it's a moot point, if the locker room doesn't care about it, if nobody's talking about it, fine. But if I can understand the other players on that team being like, you took yourself out voluntarily of a football game. We only get 17 of these bad boys. You only get so many opportunities to do this, and you're taking yourself out because you're tired. So I can understand like the offensive linemen, the trench guys, everything being like, we don't take time. we don't take plays off because we're tired. So and like I think that could be something. But again, going back to the Joe Flacco thing, to me, playing Joe Flacco is stepping over $100 bills to pick up pennies. You might be like, oh, okay, like this is something that could be a real good short-term thing for me. And there's not even a guarantee that it's that. Richardson could be something fantastic for you. And the way that you find that out is you have to play him. How many quarterbacks sit for 4 weeks and then all of a sudden they go, oh, yeah, I'm right again. I'm good to go. Like, that to me just doesn't happen either. So I think if you bench him, even with the plan of like bringing him back, that also sends the wrong message to the team. That sends a message to the other guys that are on the team that like, yeah, all right, coaching staff clearly doesn't think that this guy's it. And the second Richardson might start to struggle again when you put him back in there, it's only going to amplify those questions even more. So no, I don't think that you, outside of the locker room being pissed that he took himself out, I think it's crazy to bench him. I don't think that there is an excuse for it other than you're trying to win the football game next week. And if you want to tell yourself that, yeah, maybe Joe Flacco gives you that best opportunity. But you didn't draft this guy in the top 5 to give up on him a year and a half into his career. And not only a year and a half into his career, like barely 10 starts into his career. That's crazy to me. It's crazy to me, especially because of the good things that he can do for you. And I do think that Richardson is improving. Like, is the footwork perfect for him? No, but there are plenty of times when I'm watching the game against the Texans where I think that he is much more fundamentally sound as a passer. Like, he's staying within structure. He has good fundamentals there. Is it perfect? Is it repetitive? Is it consistent? Not entirely, but it's a lot better than what it looked like in Gainesville. So there's evident progress there, and I think it's crazy that people would be talking about benching Anthony Richardson. I really do. I think it's. What was the stat that you had yesterday that you shared with me? He's like, since 2010. Yeah. Go ahead. I think you have it.
He's like the worst. I'm gonna vamp a little bit as I go into our chat here, but he's 44% completion rate, which is this season, which is 745th. Out of 747 quarterbacks since 2010.
Not great.
But 16.2 yards per completion, which is first out of those 747 quarterbacks. So you're getting something there, right? There's something. I'm going to give you another Joe Flacco stat as I'm looking up his career here. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't want to make this the anti-Joe Flacco podcast. But it's just for the people who think that like Joe Flacco was like the savior. Maybe I'm making up a guy here. I might be making up a human being who thinks that Joe Flacco is like an elite quarterback. He's been playing in this league since 2008, mostly as a starter. He has 2 seasons where he graded above 75.0 PFF grade. Now, you say whatever you want on PFF grade, but it does tell you a pretty good picture, even at his best, quote unquote. With the Ravens in his prime, he was led by the defense. So he stuck around for a long time. And like I said, he had a good like box score time with the Browns last year and so far with the Colts, but he might not even get you to the playoffs. No,
and I don't think that you're making that person up in your head, especially because I think there's a lot of people out there that just go like, Richardson's a bum, bench him. And this is the continuation of that conversation. You go, okay, for who? You don't just get to like bench a quarterback and then like you put prime Peyton Manning in there. That's not what we're talking about here. Like you're Andrew Luck's not still on the team. Like you're not putting like Andrew Luck back in the game. So a lot of people are frustrated with Anthony Richardson. I think the Colts fans are probably frustrated with him. But what's the alternative? And if the alternative is not better than letting Richardson ride it out and actually get through some snaps, I don't know what to tell. Honestly, if Goodson catches the football in the corner of the end zone, and if A.D. Mitchell gets another foot down in the corner of the end zone, they win this football game. Now, I understand, like, if he doesn't throw the interception to Jalen Petrie, okay, maybe they also still win this football game. But, like, even the throw to Petrie, like, Petrie's a ball hawk. He's an aggressive safety. Should he have seen that he was leaning a little bit more towards where he was coming from? And did the Texans really start to key in on those comeback routes at the sticks? Yeah, they did, but that's also just an aggressive defender making a good play. So I don't know. I think that a lot of people look at that and they just go like, oh, you can't attempt that throw. Obviously, it's a throw that he would love to have back. But you fix 2 of what could have very well been touchdowns, certainly from Anthony Richardson's side of things, in that game, Colts win. Like, Colts win this game. He's completing like less than 50% of his passes, and the Colts win the game because of what he can do for you. Because he's got 4 big-time throws in this game. So, I don't know, man. The goal is not to be, like, mediocre. Like, the goal is not to be average. And let's face it, if Joe Flacco is the quarterback of this team, again, I'm with you. I don't want this to be a Joe Flacco's number one hater podcast. It's not, I promise you. But if you put Flacco in, the best that you're probably going to finish is like 9-8, and maybe you barely make the playoffs at that point. That's worth it over what could be the payoff for Anthony Richardson? Because if you bench Richardson for Flacco, and Flacco even has the season that you are talking about that you love, that he's going to make the wild card and maybe you get bounced in the first round, you're probably moving on from Richardson at the end of this season then at that point. Because that's some crazy fractured relationships and fractured faith at that point. And if you stick with him and you start him next year and, he continues to struggle because guess what? He didn't get the reps that he needed this year after you benched him, then he's not going to be great. You're going to bench him again. The trade value is only going to go down from there. And so I don't see a reality where the payoff is actually worth it to bench him. You drafted him number 4 overall for a reason. You are letting it ride. You owed it to him at the very least to let it ride for 2 seasons. At the very least 2 seasons. So, yeah. Any other Richardson thoughts before we move on?
2 things. He was under pressure a lot in this game. This is a good offensive line by the Colts that got dominated, to be honest, by Will Anderson and the Houston Texans D-line, which they generally don't. It is, like I said, it's a good offensive line, though they might be playing with that Bernard Ryman for a while. I'm not sure what his injury situation is. And then the other thing is they haven't been good on quarterback run stuff this year, whether it's like zone read option, design, quarterback power, quarterback sweep, that type of thing. Do you think they will continue to be bad on that stuff with Anthony Richardson at quarterback? Do you think that is a fundamental part of their offense to not be good at running the football with the quarterback? That is going to regress towards greener pastures. And if that happens, then the running game is better. Then you're not in as many third downs and yada, yada, yada. And you get a better outcome from Anthony Richardson. I'm not saying you might not get better play out of it this year in the passing game, but you get better outcomes because you're in better situations.
Best part about football season, folks, checking out the post-game stats, right? How many rushing yards did Anthony Richardson get? How many passing yards did Anthony Richardson get? How many big-time throws did Anthony Richardson get? If you think you know what's going to happen with Anthony Richardson before kickoff and any other game or any other player, you got to check out Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Select between 2 to 6 players and choose whether they will have more or less than a single stat. It is that simple, folks. For first-time Pick 6 players, you can check this out. New customers, you play just $5 on any Pick 6 set. You get $50 in Pick 6 credits for free right there. We obviously talked about Richardson, but it could be any player. They've got all sorts of stats and more or less for every player, whether it's yards or touchdowns or whatever it is. You can check it out over at Pick 6. Now on the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF for new customers to play $5 on your first Pick 6 set. You get 50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. All right. Let's talk about a much more happy topic. Well, not if you've been playing the Chargers the last couple of weeks, but if you're a Chargers fan, it's a pretty happy topic because Justin Herbert was going through high ankle sprain that he was playing through the early parts of the season. He looks good to go now. Over the last 2 weeks, not a quarterback rating better than him. He's had back-to-back elite passing performances. He's got 9 big-time throws over the last 2 weeks and 0 turnover-worthy plays, 5 big-time throws in this past game against Seth, your New Orleans Saints. What did you think about Justin Herbert here and how he has been playing over the last 2 weeks?
Well, I don't see a difference between the way Justin Herbert's been playing the last 2 weeks and the first 6 weeks. I think he's always been a top 5 quarterback. He continues to be a top 5 quarterback. And that's it. Like this is a guy who is, it's sad to think that we've just kind of forgot about him because he's in LA, where I think we believe that there's a rebuild happening, and there is, no doubt. They've certainly played better than I think a lot of people have thought, especially on defense, though arguably haven't really played any top offenses yet. Besides the Chiefs. So Yeah, I'm like, it's exciting to watch him play. He's everything. He's everything you want in a quarterback. He's his timing, his accuracy, his decision making. Like, what else is there to say? It's perfect. They hit on Joe Alt. Love to see that. Slater's still amazing. Their interior is not good, but at least they have the 2 tackles now. They hit on Ladd McConkey in the second round.
Yep.
You still want a wide receiver 1, that's for sure. I do like McConkey, and I think there's some teams that picked receivers before Ladd McConkey who probably would like him right now. But doing this with no interior offensive line, with no true wide receiver 1, with no running game. This is a team that A, runs the ball a lot on first down, and B, basically goes backwards when they run the ball on first down. So you're in these long yarded situations a lot, and he just keeps bailing them out. Tremendous quarterback, top 5 in the league. And that's it. Like, I don't even know what else to say. He makes sick throws every damn game. Eventually, everything will connect spiritually, emotionally for the Los Angeles Chargers, and they're going to win a lot of games because he's too good for them to not have as good outcomes for that level of quarterback play.
When the Chargers hired Jim Harbaugh, people were like, okay, what's your prediction, realistic prediction for the Chargers this year? I wasn't super bullish on them this year. I felt like they were going to win 7-ish games. I just didn't love the rest of the team. But anytime that I previewed the Chargers, I was like, okay, but 2025? Like, I think this is a legitimate team to, when we talk about if the Chiefs take a little bit of a step back after they go for the three-peat here, who's the team that's actually going to come up and take the top of that division? To me, it was the Chargers. To me, the Chargers were the ones who had the winning window lined up to really become a force and potentially a division winner there, even with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. I didn't think that would be 2024, but I thought it'd be 2025, and I think you're seeing signs of that certainly with how the defense is playing, how the offensive line is now playing with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater in there, but also just because they have Justin Herbert. And Seth, something that I liked a lot about this game when I rewatched it, Herbert had 5 big-time throws in this game. 4 of them came on second down. And not just second down, but like second and long situations. 2nd and 12, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 18, 2nd and 20 and 12 once again. And these are all like, okay, you think the defense has the advantage here, right? They really were able to either stop you on first down or get you to go backwards on first down. That's to the defense's advantage. There are some offensive coordinators that on 2nd and long, especially on 2nd and 10 plus, they're just playing to get to like 3rd and 5. Let's get to 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4 and manageable. They're calling plays right now for Justin Herbert to sling it. It's like, all right, 2nd and 12, go get the first down if he's open. Let's go for the first down. To me, I think that offensive coordinators a lot in the NFL sometimes like get in their own head and they go, okay, we got to set up 3rd and manageable. We got to set up 3rd and manageable. And they forget that the goal is not 3rd and manageable. Like, the goal is first downs. And if you have the ability, if you have a player at quarterback, if you have the weapons to be able to do it, if you have the right setup and how you're attacking the defense to be able to continually attack past the sticks, do it. And Justin Herbert is that caliber of a quarterback. And I think this year, this past game specifically, was a great example of we have a player who can get us out of trouble at any point in time. We don't have to play for these 3rd and short situations. We're getting first downs. We're scoring. Like, that's what we're trying to do here. That's the point of offense. And to me, I think that sometimes offensive coordinators just forget that because they want to put themselves in favorable situations. But he's a change the math type of a player, especially when you get in those 2nd and 10 plus situations where you think this is going to be a win for the defense and it's not. And with one throw on 2nd down, he doesn't even have to wait till 3rd down. He's going to convert a first down on you. The only other big time throw that he had that wasn't on 2nd down was on 1st and 10. It was right at the red zone at the 20-yard line. He threw a touchdown in the back corner of the end zone. So to me, the aggressiveness that he has as a passer on early downs in this game really showed. We love to talk about like, oh, okay, like what is this quarterback like on 3rd down? Justin Herbert was so good, he didn't get to 3rd down on a lot of these situations because he was able to convert the football and push the ball deep down the field. So to me, that mentality and that chemistry, that faith that he has with their play caller is is top notch for me, and it's truly yielding what I think is the highest potential, highest ceiling Justin Herbert we've seen yet in his career.
Justin Herbert's the highest graded passer on 2nd and 7+ this season.
I believe it, certainly after last week.
Yeah, like you're 100% right. Like that he is. And it's like he has no choice to be because of what I said about them going backwards on 1st and 10 all the time. Like they're just not creating successful plays in the run game on first and 10. And so you're going backwards. Now, the caveat is like, you know, they haven't played a great defense. You have a in the last 2 weeks, you have a Cardinals team that gives up a lot of space in the passing game. You have a Saints team that wants to play tight man coverage but can't get to the quarterback. So like there's issues with those two defenses. But still, like the timing is so good that it almost doesn't matter. Now they're going to play teams and they have played teams that are going to get tighter to the routes. Like it's just going to happen. And they don't yet have a receiver. And you know, as I'm watching, and I like Ladd McConkey. Yeah, I thought he was one of my favorite receivers coming out this past season. But you look at it and you realize what the difference is between a wide receiver one, the elite tier, and almost basically everyone else. Because you look at a Josh Palmer, you're like, man, I like Josh Palmer. Like he makes plays. You're like, oh, he's good. I like Josh Palmer. But the difference between a Josh Palmer, even if you say Josh Palmer's in like the tier 2, he's probably not. But even if you say he's in the tier 2 of receivers, which I think there's a lot of receivers in the tier 2 and 3. There's not a lot in the tier 1.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you say that, you look at the difference between what a Jefferson, an AJ Brown, a Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, like what that does to an offense. We're going to talk about it when we talk about Jalen Hurts in a minute. And them not having that and still having this type of success is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like, these are not great yak receivers. We've seen some plays. Obviously, we saw the big play to Ladd McConkey, but these are not generally good yak receivers, even at the running back position. But Herbert throws the ball so accurately and in stride that they're able to get yards after catch. Like they're top half of the league in yards after catch per reception. Not like you can't tell me that's because of the receiver play. That's because of Justin Herbert putting the ball on the money all the time.
Right.
Because they should not be that high in yards after catch. And they are because of Justin Herbert. So it's like that second nature, second order things that that elite quarterbacks bring an offense.
He's been fantastic. There's no doubt about it. You touched on it. We're going to get to Jalen Hurts in a second, but we got to tell people that this podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Cherry Bunny, the performance drink that is fueling the health-lete revolution. Natural products, natural ingredients. The tart cherries, they're the highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. You see a couple of their products there on the screen. It's not just a pure recovery, but it's also can help you with sleep. They got a protein drink as well. Natural inflammatories, got a ton of benefits. Reduce soreness, increase recovery, helps with sleep, helps with immunity. It is used by nearly 500 collegiate and professional sports teams. Every single NFL team that was traveling overseas, Europe, Brazil, whatever it was, had Cherry Bunny with them. And it's because it's just fantastic for whatever your active needs are. If you are, an athlete or active at all whatsoever, if you're training for a marathon, if you're training for CrossFit, if you're walking around the neighborhood a couple of times a week, whatever, if you're into yoga, whatever it is, if you are trying to recover a little bit better, sleep a little bit better, get your body in a great place to be active, you got to check out Cherry Bunny. Products are available at Amazon and cherrybunny.com. Retailers nationwide, including Publix, Kroger. So check the local stuff there as well. It's more than just the drinks. They got the gels, they got the powders, they got everything, man. They got gummies. It's fantastic stuff. They've got a lot of stuff for you to be able to choose from. So go check it all out at cherrybunny.com and become the best athlete that you can be, whatever version of that that you end up finding. So let's talk about Jalen Hurts next. Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts has graded well over the last 2 weeks for us. This past week against the Cincinnati Bengals, he had a 80.0 passing grade. He was 16 for 20 passing, had one big-time throw, one turnover-worthy play. Adjusted completion percentage was, almost 90% in this game. So he was threading the needle. Ball was not hitting the ground very much. But you said at the top of the show, you were going to be a hater. People weren't going to like what he had to say about Jalen Hurts. We have been critics of Justin Hurts. Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts in the same show is actually my worst nightmare, as we are seeing here. What do you think about Jalen Hurts? We've been harsh on him earlier in the year. He's had a couple of good games grade-wise. Eagles played a little bit better, but you seem to be a skeptic still. Thoughts on Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I don't see a very different quarterback than the quarterback we've been talking about for the past 3 seasons, to be honest. He's been accurate the last few weeks. I'll say the same caveat that I did talking about Justin Herbert. Defensives hasn't been Giants and Bengals defense, especially the pass defense. They haven't been very good. I don't see a very different quarterback. There's 2 things that I've seen here. He hasn't put the ball in harm's way, which is great. No problem. Like, I'm not trying to say that's not insignificant, because he had early in the season made some boneheaded plays. Mm-hmm. And then one thing in particular that I've noticed the past couple of weeks is that when he scrambles, we've talked about this, he is notorious for scrambling out of the back of the pocket, and especially to his throwing side, to his right side. And the numbers are bad when he does that. He's just not a good quarterback when he cuts down that side of the field. He's not Josh Allen like that. And then he doesn't have that kind of quickness to outrun a player laterally and then get up the field. And you see that not only when he scrambles outside of the pocket in that way, but also running zone reads. In the run game, which he's just not very good at. But what I've seen recently is a guy who has stepped up and scrambled more through the pocket. And that's where he's at his best. Because when he gets ahead of steam going, then he's tough to bring down. Then he's got a little bit of deceptive speed in that way. And when he does that, and when he's done it throughout his career, he's tough. His stats are very good in those areas, and you're seeing a slight uptick in that way. Now, I think a lot of it has to do with when you go from Lane Johnson at left tackle to Lane Johnson to Fred Johnson. Am I right about that? Mm-hmm. At left tackle, like the new left tackle is allowing pressure around the corner so he can step up inside of that pressure, and it's been good. Like those plays have been good. Now, in the passing game, what am I supposed to take from this other than you have AJ Brown on the field and the other team does not? The other defense can't cover AJ Brown. Like, I don't know what else. There's every throw is a sideline throw to AJ Brown, and then there's a jump ball to the best wide receiver 2 or whatever in the league in Devontae Smith. Like, I'm not really sure what else there is to talk about other than those plays in this Philly offense where AJ Brown just gets open on the sideline every damn time. He is impossible to cover a top 5 receiver easily in the league. So that's kind of where I am with them. It's good. It's what it needs to be, considering this is how it was when they went to the Super Bowl. So that's great for the offense in general, but I don't think Jalen Hurts is that much different. You messed up. You call him Justin Hurts. I just gave him a soft J and call him Halen Hurts. So we're on the same page there.
When I rewatched this game, there were a couple areas where he had some nice completions over the middle, but even then, like, he hesitated a little bit. There was like that hesitation, and I think I'm watching it, and throws over the middle. They're all about timing. So maybe I was saying, like, okay, well, I could give him the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe he's just kind of pump faking the defender, waiting for the wide receiver to come open, because he eventually did. But I also felt like it was it could have been a little bit of a timing issue there for him. I do still think that this offense is too reliant on AJ Brown, if that is a thing. But you look at the Bengals on the other side, right? They're down T. Higgins. The offense looks completely different. You look at the Seattle Seahawks. They did not have DK Metcalf in this past game against the Buffalo Bills. Basically didn't look competitive. Like, without DK Metcalf out there to be able to throw the ball to, jump ball wise, they didn't really have it. When AJ Brown has missed time this year, the Eagles offense really has not been what it has needed to be. And, you know, I think that we look at the Eagles, and me personally over the last couple of weeks, I have wanted the offense to look more balanced. I have wanted it to look different. But at the end of the day, I can't sit here and ask for this team to be something that they're just not. And at this point in time, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are simply going to be a run the ball with Jalen Hurts and with Saquon Barkley type of a team, and they're a shot play team with the best shot play wide receiver in the NFL in A.J. Brown, and then obviously you've got Devontae Smith like we saw this past weekend. That just kind of is what it is. It's not going to be this like balanced, methodical, okay, now we're hitting short passes to the outside, you know, now we're hitting things over the intermediate middle like all the time. Like it's not going to be this layered progression passing game. It's going to be run the ball and shot plays. That is what their offensive identity is. And so earlier in the season, I was asking for it to be a little bit more diverse, a little bit more, how do I say this? A little more margin for error, I would think, than just, either we completed a deep, because right now it feels like, here's the Philadelphia Eagles. Did A.J. Brown get 2 passes of 25 yards or more in this game? Because if he didn't, they probably didn't win. And if they did, there's a good chance that they did, because the rest of the offense was going well for them. And I don't like when offenses are that reliant, but it is also hard to not lean into that when you do have a receiver like A.J. Brown. So I think it has been certainly better with A.J. Brown coming back. And, you know, the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, am I asking the Eagles to be something that they're never going to be? And if that's the case, I've got to reevaluate how I look at the Eagles. And as of right now, the way the team is constructed, Seth, I don't know if the team's going to be any different than what it is right now. So it's kind of like, are they the best version even of this run the ball and shot play offense? I think that they're playing it well, obviously, as evidenced over the last couple of weeks. But that's my thoughts overall on the Eagles.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. They might end up being the best because you have Saquon Barkley. That's the best runner they've had in this version of the offense. And clearly he's a really good player. And that's fine. Like, again, like that's fine if that's what you want to be. But I think we're at the point where we can kind of just say like, hey, Jalen Hurts is not going to be a quarterback that can overcome things that aren't great contextually. There's a fragility to his game where we just talked about Justin Herbert. There is no fragility to Justin Herbert's game. Whether it's O-line play, whether it's receiver play, whether it's under pressure, it doesn't matter. There's no fragility. It's always going to be at the top level. And there's fragility to Jalen Hurts' game. Like when there's pressure, though they have been under pressure a lot this season, something we thought was going to be a problem after you lose Jason Kelce, and now you've had a left tackle injury. So that's been an issue. Like they're under pressure a lot more. Like I said, he's managed it better the last couple weeks, but if he is going to be under pressure 3 more times a game, usually those plays are not good for Jalen Hurts. And like those are third down plays that you're off the field 3 more times a game. Like that's a lot in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So that's my concern. I pulled up some stats here as you were talking about AJ Brown. So I can't actually give you like when AJ Brown is on the field versus when he's off the field, but I can tell you what this Philly offense is right now, in terms of their efficiency, is in terms of their expected points added per play. This whole season, it's 0.072, which is pretty good. But on the plays where AJ Brown is on the field, 0.318, which is like elite.
Wow.
Like above, way above anything, right? Like your reaction, you know how EPA works.
Yeah.
Your reaction there is nuts. Incredible. Like that's nuts, right? Like that's how good AJ Brown is. And then when you have him and Devonta Smith on the field and Goddard, another player that I feel like didn't play recently. Am I crazy about that?
No, Calcaterra's in there.
Exactly. Calcaterra caught that ball over the middle of the field.
Yeah. So
like when you have all those players in, like, this offense is going to continue to roll. I think Hurts is a passenger to a certain degree, but that's not saying anything bad about this whole offense, which is great to watch.
I think that is a good way to put it. We often think that quarterbacks have to be the driver of whatever is going on. And for the Eagles, the driver is A.J. Brown, and then the backup driver is Saquon Barkley. And then I think that Jalen Hurts is more of somebody who's a passenger, which is okay. I think that people, when they think about quarterbacks that are like that, they get really freaked out. But that's just sort of the way that the Eagles offense is constructed. And we often talk about like, okay, well, what if this guy wasn't there? Well, here's the thing. If he's in there, it doesn't matter. So as long as A.J. Brown doesn't miss any more time throughout the rest of the season, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to stay a force and a team that could potentially win their division again, make the playoffs. And even though it might not be Hurts as the conductor, as the engine even, I think that his role in this certainly has Philly's offense playing very well. Appreciate everybody watching and listening to the show. If you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can go over and get one at PFF.com. You can take a look at all the PFF stats that we talked about here on the show and so much more. The fantasy football tools, the free agency tools, the NFL draft stuff like the mock draft simulator, fully unlocked. It's fantastic. If you don't have a subscription, go get one over at PFF.com. For Seth, Galina, I am Trevor Sikkema. Thank you guys so much for watching Week 8 of the Quarterback Showcase here on the PFF NFL Show. We're going to see you right here, same spot, next week. See you guys then.